my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and I've officially returned. If you are a new listener, I was away last week on a retreat, a personal growth retreat, and man, I have to say, it was fucking life-changing, y'all. And I'm gonna get into everything about it, all the stuff I learned, what I was feeling prior to going there. But I feel absolutely incredible. And not even just from the work that we did there, which was absolutely amazing, but also not having my phone or connection to the outside world, no internet, no TV, no nothing for an entire week, was extremely liberating, especially being that I work in an industry that, you know, like many of you, requires you to be so incredibly connected. And for me, a part of my job is social media and everything that comes along with it, right? Like we all are far more connected than we need to be in today's day and age. And man, it was great to like detox from that. And it's definitely opened my eyes to, you know, some practices that weren't very healthy for myself that I'm definitely going to be changing here, you know, as these next couple of weeks kind of go on. And I want to get into all of that. So my main goal, my main kind of vow to myself when I left, and the process I went through was called the Hoffman Process. You'll find a lot of people talking about it. They've had like 100,000 graduates from it. It's a super popular thing amongst kind of the self-help, you know, personal growth type of community. But yeah, like I was saying about my vow that I made for myself in this process, and it overall, the message I want for myself is that I want to live my life as my truly authentic self. And that's a journey I've been on for a little bit now. And this process really just opened that up to me. So I want to kind of get into some of my experience, as well as kind of talking about what it means to truly live authentically. I mean, especially, I think those of us, you know, who are Latino and first and second generation, you know, we kind of have this constant tug and pull of like the old school mentality of maybe our parents or our grandparents, along with kind of the way things are in today's day and age. And we're constantly always trying to find where we fit into that. I mean, shit, obviously that's what this podcast is kind of all about to a degree. And it's just really all about finding where you feel most comfortable and can live as your most authentic self. So I thought this is something that would be incredible to share with y'all. And I feel like it's not something that is super prevalent in our community. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a lot of like, you know, a lot of the people who talk about the Hoffman process and things like this are those like rich, you know, people in like the world of tech and you know, and Palo Alto and all these different places in like the Bay Area, you know what I mean? And you know, for those of us who don't exist in those worlds, and maybe come from meager places or working class families, stuff like this has never really been an option for us, right? We kind of just have to bury it down, or we're told to pray it, you know, pray it away and things like that. So I want to dive into all that kind of stuff that I kind of learned, and then also kind of that I learned. But first, I want to explain what the fuck the Hoffman process is first and foremost, and what led me to go and find something like this and spend, you know, a nice chunk of change on a journey like this. So of course, we'll get into you know, our Mi Gente segment where I'll give you my entire experience, and then also our Ask a Gringo segment where I'll allow y'all to express where you feel like you are in your journey to being your authentic self. But first, as I kind of teased, let's do a deep dive into the Hoffman process and kind of my mindset going into it in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, so first and foremost, I guess kind of what led me to go and do such a man, an intensive program like the Hoffman Process, which it's incredibly intense, far more than anybody can prepare you for. It's like a week-long process of like 12-hour days, 13-hour days of them just really making you dive into every nook and cranny of your mental and figure out where you picked up certain patterns throughout your life. And I'll get into all that in a second. But I know for me, as much as I've kind of studied the world of self-help and personal growth and have done a lot of work on myself and alongside my family and things like that, I still I felt like I was coming up short when it comes to finding my real authentic self. And I mean, to be fair to myself, I feel like I wasn't completely aware of who I authentically was up until probably about a year and a half ago, during the pandemic and everything like that, where I had this time to kind of just be in silence and have extra time to really focus on myself. And, and things like this podcast or my TV show have all been the results of that time period, but I wanted to go a bit deeper. I felt like I still was like going in and out of my authentic self, right? Like I had this vision of myself as a kid, and I have this picture of myself as a kid that I had my parents dig up before I left. And it's just like me dancing for our entire family, like not a care in the fucking world. And I really felt like I didn't know who that kid was anymore. Like I felt like I saw bits and pieces of him at certain times, maybe, during events or on the radio and things. But there were so many other times where I kind of like became really uncomfortable with, interacting with people, and I would kind of fall short of what I knew I was capable of. And to be perfectly honest, like I've gone through many periods of feeling incredibly insecure around other people, insecure in front of groups of people, insecure in front of certain people, right? Like if I got into a room full of really accomplished people, I would minimize myself, right? Like I would, kind of just want to be like a bystander, you know what I mean? And this kind of stuff led to a lot of, self-hate, self-doubt. I've openly talked about my, kind of battle with anxiety and depression over years, at this point, since I was a teenager, and kind of all of those things, I really wanted to find something that worked for me. I've done therapy. I've read all the books. I talk about this kind of stuff on a regular basis, and I do my best to try and help other people out. But, I felt like I really wasn't getting to the center of where all of these feelings, lie inside of me. Where was this like self-hatred coming from? Where was this lack of confidence in myself, coming from? I can sit here and list off a bunch of incredible things that I've gotten to accomplish, but I still feel like that same kid who was like a loser sitting in his parents' basement, not knowing what he wanted to do with his life. I always feel like I have to prove something to somebody, and I wanted to really get to the bottom of that. What was the root of all of that? And, I can remember kind of just like going through a depression spell and being on the phone with my girlfriend and kind of just opening up to her about what I was going through, and just kind of like really just like, man, I don't know why I can't seem to find happiness, why I can't seem to find fulfillment amongst, amidst all these amazing things that are happening for me, all these incredible people that I have in my life. I just still feel like something's missing at all times, and it really just makes me sad. I feel sad for no reason sometimes, right? And then she, mentioned the Hoffman Process that she had heard on a podcast, and she thought it was something I should check out. And, while on the phone with her, I went and I just went to their website, read a quick little blurb, looked at like one review from somebody who had taken like their online course, and was like, fuck it, I'm going to take this as a sign that I should, sign up for this and see what happens. I had seen a couple really successful people. One of them was Scooter Braun, who is Justin Bieber's manager. Take it, and he went to the process and, was raving about how it changed his life. So I was like, fuck it. These guys obviously are far more successful than I am. They know something that I don't. If they're ranting and raving about it, then that's good enough for me. So I remember putting down I think it was a $500 deposit, and then realizing that it was a $4,000 course, but saying, fuck it. I've spent $4,000 on a lot of bullshit that really doesn't serve me any purpose right now. But this is an investment in myself, my future, and my happiness, and, potentially my future generations, my kids' happiness and my marriage and all of the above, right? My career. So I just went for it and figuring out, it is what it is. And let me first and foremost say that I'm so grateful that I did. It was life changing. It was everything that it was teased to be and more. And I'll get into that in the next segment. I just want to quickly, for anybody that's kind of curious and wondering, what is the Hoffman process? And I'm pulling this from their website. This is their like exact kind of about me type of thing. And on their website, they say the Hoffman Institute Foundation is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to transformative adult education, spiritual growth, and the personal dimensions of leadership. With affiliated Hoffman centers in 10 countries, more than 100,000 people have found that the residential, week-long Hoffman process improves the quality of their lives, their relationships, and their careers. In the United States, the process is offered at beautiful retreat sites on both the West and East Coast. Through our proprietary methodology, participants learn how to transform counterproductive beliefs, perceptions, and emotional patterns that are limiting their lives. They are taught how to live from the positive dimensions of their beings, resulting in lives that are more free, open, loving, spontaneous, joyous, creative, balanced, and whole. I mean, who the fuck doesn't want any of all of the above, right? So, yes, they got my money right off the get before I ever knew what the fuck I was really getting into. And I will say, even leading up to like the days, the weeks, the days, getting up there, the hours while driving up there, I did it in Connecticut. So it was like a 3-hour drive for me. So while driving up there, like I felt like I was going away to do like a bid in prison. I'm not gonna lie to you. As dramatic as that sounds, like I just kind of like felt like this was gonna be such a transformative experience for better or worse. That it felt really heavy going up there. I was so anxious. I hadn't really done much research. I wasn't sure what to expect. And I was just nervous as fuck going into it, to be perfectly honest with you. As much as I've kind of preached about doing the work on yourself and all of the above, like this one just seemed extreme, like 7 days away from work, having to tell everybody that I work with, all my different jobs and hustles, hey, I'm going to be away for this. You're not going to be able to contact me. And people being like, well, what do you mean you can't like use your phone? Like people thought probably I was going to rehab or I was joining a cult, I think is like the popular ones that people think. But with that said, I pushed through, drove up there, handed over my phone and iPad, and was completely open to whatever crazy shit they threw at me. And let me tell you, they threw a lot of crazy shit at me. So now with that said, let's get into my experience, and we'll do it in the Mi Gente segment of the show. Mi Gente. All right, so I'm kind of figuring out how I want to explain the whole thing without giving away too much, because a lot of what they do there is very much experiential, right? Like you're supposed to kind of get engulfed in what's happening around you and just get lost in it. So I don't want to ruin it for anybody, because I'm hoping that so many other people will take advantage of this process to absolutely change their life. And by the way, I will make a side note. They do have scholarships available, which from what the staff told me, largely go unused. So if like financially you're a little bit concerned, I would look into a scholarship to help you pay for this. And trust me, it's worth all the work that they make you do beforehand. But the kind of general idea about the Hoffman process is that they believe that all of our negative patterns that we all have in our life essentially can be traced back to our parents. And they actually say that a study that they follow says that we actually pick up patterns from our parents as early as 18 months old, right? So you're talking about a little tiny baby is already picking up patterns from their parents. And I think for me, one of the more powerful things about this is like when I went into it, I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm like a cold, detached person, right? That's something that I typically would do. That might come as a shock to so many people because I'm able to be vulnerable on the podcast and in other places. But oftentimes in my personal life, with those closest to me, I tend to shut down when we get into kind of these tougher conversations or, someone is coming to me with a lot of emotion. It's not because I don't care. It's because I just begin to feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, right? And I figured out that reason, obviously, during this process. But, my girlfriend would describe like my attachment style, which is like a real thing. I think I talked about this. My attachment style, which is something, the way we present ourselves in relationships. My attachment style was like a detached person, right? I had a detached attachment style. And it's obviously not the way that I want to live. I don't want to be cold or disconnected to those that are closest to me. I don't want to feel uncomfortable when people are sharing things with me, right? So it's something I obviously wanted to work on. And I think the cool thing for me that I learned in this from the start was that I'm not a cold or detached person. That's not a personality trait. I just have patterns of being cold or detached, right? So that to me is freeing because it says that all of our negative things, whether you're an angry person, a sad person, a shy person, whatever it is, like those are not traits of you as a person. Those are not your characteristics. They're simply just patterns. And the thing about patterns is that you can actually correct patterns. You can reroute patterns, right? That's the freeing part about all of that. Like there is hope no matter, what it is that you do in your life, that you keep finding yourself in some sort of cycle or going through the motions of kind of, having the same actions or reactions to things. Like they're just patterns that you can correct given the right structure and putting in work towards it. To me, that was like freeing, right? Like that was just an incredible, incredible thing to realize. And I'm using that as an example, right? And so when you identify these patterns, right, you do like this whole list of a bunch of different patterns that you have. You begin to trace it back. Where did it come from? Which parent did I see it from? Did I sort of mirror the actions of one of my other parents, or did I rebel against one of their patterns? You know what I mean? And that's why I act the way that I do. And listen, I'll be real with you. There are moments of this whole thing where it's like very like woo woo and kumbaya type of shit. And moments where I was like, bro, I don't buy into any of this. I feel like I'm just wasting my time right now. I'm spinning my wheels. And then somehow, some way, they find a way to just fucking suck you into this whole thing, right? And like you get lost in it and you start feeling all the emotions. Like I have not cried this much ever in my adult life, like ever. I probably cried, I don't know, 10 years worth of crying. I did it in this 1 week. It was that much of an emotionally charged experience. And I apologize if I'm kind of bouncing around because I'm not trying to give you too many specifics about it. I'm just kind of trying to let you know some of my feelings, some of my experience, and I guess the ways that I was feeling within it. But I think one of the other profound things that I noticed is and it to me, it's very indicative of the world that we live in right now, where it's like you exist on either one side or the other, right? There's so much hate and fighting that's happening, and so many people just knocking their heads against one another, right? And a lot of that you realize is because there's a lack of compassion and empathy for each other, right? We're not seeing each other as whole human beings. Like I had an experience when I was checking in with one of my classmates, and I hadn't known her at this point, hadn't gotten introduced, and she was like bitching and moaning at the front desk person for some really like asinine things that were just kind of like, this is what you're complaining about. And then you go on to see them in the process, and I'm already like kind of judging, which is one of my patterns of like, oh God, this person's like an asshole basically, right? And then you start getting to know them and hearing their story, and you start realizing, wow, this person's not an asshole. They just had a really fucked up upbringing where they didn't feel loved or heard by their parent, right? And now as an adult, they find themselves fighting to be heard, and one of their ways of doing that is sort of finding like these simple things that any one of us might bounce off our, might just kind of, dust off our shoulder on. They are going to use that as a method to be heard, to have their voice heard, to be seen. And when you see it like that, it's like, man, that's just like they have a wounded child inside of them that is now reacting as an adult. And it just really kind of opened my eyes to the human being in all of us, right? Like one thing they do, they make you kind of picture everybody as a little kid, because you can't get mad at little kids, right? You have so much empathy for children. And when you start picturing yourself and each other as children, you begin to take on that emotion of empathy and your parents as children, because you start realizing, I got these patterns from my parents. They got their patterns from their parents, right? Like one thing I realized when I dug deep, and, I've done a lot of work with forgiveness and with my parents, and, y'all heard it on the first episode of the podcast. And if you haven't, please check that out. But this made me dig even deeper, where I kind of really got to go deep into their childhood and think about what made them the way that they are, right? And then you begin to realize, like, your parents are just human beings like you, imperfect, trying to figure it out on the spot. And while doing that, they're also battling their own demons that they inherited from their parents, right? They're battling their own shit while trying to raise you and trying to do a better job than their parents, And they didn't have the tools, especially when you talk about our community in the Latin space of like therapy and shit, things like this. It was like, man, just pray, and it'll all go away, right? So they didn't have the proper tools like we do today, or the openness, or people allowing space to be vulnerable. That didn't happen back then. So they really were like on an island by themselves, dealing with all kinds of trauma, then trying to raise kids and trying to do better than their parents did. And my parents did. I'm sure most of our parents did better than theirs did, right? But with something like this, you begin to realize, just doing slightly better is not enough, or just doing better is not enough. You want to completely like take yourself out of all of those negative spaces that you grew up in and all those negative patterns that you learned. Like for me, this was completely disconnecting from all the bad things that my parents may have taught me. And now I feel capable of like really breaking a lot of those like generational curses that I talk about so much, in a lot of my content. And I think that's what's incredibly important, is that like me doing this work on myself right now will prevent my kids from having the same level of trauma that I did. And listen, no parent is perfect. Even after coming out of this, I'm going to make mistakes at certain points throughout the course of my life. But at least I'm going to be so much more mindful of so many of those things, and hopefully won't be doing, nearly as much damage as my parents, inadvertently did onto me. And one of the other things I want to mention about this is that the sense of community that you find in this process for me was amazing. 7 days with, I think it was 21 other people plus 2 teachers, different walks of life, races, ages, occupations, you know what I mean? Like all of the above. Everything was very different. Like, for the most part, most people were married or had kids or were a little bit older. Very different from my own everyday life experience. But you find yourself walking away with like this new family as well, right? Because you're all kind of in the battle, in the trenches with each other every single day. And I remember at first being mad that there was like not enough one-on-one time. You mostly work in groups. But then you're grateful for it at the end of the day, because A, it pushes you to do something outside of your own comfort zone, and B, it connects you with this whole group of people. And I bring up the group of people in the community because I think when you think about the world the way it is right now, I hate to keep sounding like a broken record, or like, the world is falling, but like there's a lot of crazy shit happening right now. There's a lot of hate, a lot of division, and it's really beautiful to think that we could all be connecting with one another. You know what I mean? Like we could all find some sort of common denominator, some sort of connection with one another, regardless of our upbringing, regardless of our stories, regardless of any of those different things. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it made me really hopeful for the world. You know what I mean? The fact that I can build this really deep level of connection with 21 other strangers in just 7 days and feel so connected to them and so, compassionate and caring of all that they're going through and cheering them on and vice versa, right? I think it just gives you a lot of hope for humankind and kind of realizing just how beautiful this world is and how much potential there is for all of us to connect if we just put a little bit of effort, if we just allow ourselves to show up and care about one another. And all that kind of ties into being your authentic self, right? And I know a lot of people, when they hear like, oh, my authentic self, like, I don't give a fuck what nobody thinks, like, you can judge me if you want, like all kinds of dumb shit like that. You think that maybe being an asshole or being loud or dressing how you want is you showing up as your authentic self. And maybe parts of it are, right? But at the end of the day, being your authentic self to me really means showing up as your best self, right? The best version of yourself. It doesn't mean I'm going to be standoffish and make people feel uncomfortable just because I'm claiming to be authentic. No, it means that I'm showing up as the most well-rounded version of myself, like allowing myself to love others, to be curious about others, to be empathetic to others, right? Just allowing myself to be completely open. And of course, a part of that is not being concerned with how you look or how you come across, but not doing it in a way that is like just to, rebel against the system, but more so to find love for yourself, right? Authenticity to me is truly having love for yourself. It's not about finding ways to cope with others not liking you or being defensive. It's truly looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm beautiful. I love myself. I'm intelligent. I can show up and express myself fully. And it's also like being able to set boundaries, right? That's been a big thing for me, is like not setting boundaries with people, and then kind of getting mad at them without saying anything, and I end up holding on to this resentment, and it just kind of like erodes the relationship, the friendship, whatever it is, slowly over time, because I didn't take the time to have those hard conversations, or to say like, hey, this is where my boundary is. You can't cross that, or else we can't have a friendship, we can't have a relationship. And I know I'm kind of like going a little bit all over the place, but it's just so many things. I'm having like this revelation of the experience as I kind of rethink it, being a couple days out at this point. And lastly, what I'll say is, for me, I became a bit of an introvert as I got into like middle school and on. And I know for some people it's like, well, you work in media, how could you be an introvert? And I know it's like it's really weird to grasp kind of to wrap your brain around it, right? But the reality is that for the majority of my career and my time doing things that put me in front of crowds or in the public eye, it's felt like I was acting, right? And it felt like I didn't have complete control over when I can turn it on and off, right? Like sometimes I would show up and I would really be like my authentic self. I would really be outgoing and speaking and not hold back, and just be really like energetic and show up fully as myself. And other times I just couldn't tap into it, right? And oftentimes like I would have to like pump myself up, like, okay, remember, you got to turn it on today. You're about to go on the air. You're about to go do this. You're about to go do that. Like, make sure you turn on that part of yourself, and I would have to make really fucking conscious of it. And I was really always just like, man, like that wasn't me as a kid. Like, me as a kid was putting on shows for people. Me as a kid was like a class clown. Me as a kid was incredibly confident going in front of people, and performing, essentially, right? Like I wasn't afraid of being judged or anything like that. I just wanted to perform and to connect with others. And somewhere along the way, I lost that. And it was really important for me to reconnect with that kid and kind of figure out what happened. And I think this process definitely helped me do that. I think when you talk about tracing back the pattern to, why I began to shut down at a certain age, or what began to make me an introvert, I realized that, my father didn't have the proper tools to deal with the things that frustrated him or made him angry in life. So he would often come home from work really upset and kind of take it out on all of us. And my mother's defense to that was to say, let's all just kind of make ourselves small, stay quiet, don't say anything back, and he'll eventually get over it, and we can kind of move on with our day. And what I realized through this process was that I began making myself smaller at some point in my life, like in middle school. Like when I would get in front of people, I would inadvertently make myself smaller, in front of those who might be loud or authority figures, right? I would allow them to kind of, they call it transference. I would allow myself to kind of transfer those feelings that I had towards my father onto these other people, onto these authority figures, onto these people with really big personalities, onto large crowds. And I would sort of see them in the same way I saw my father, where I need to shrink myself in order to protect myself. And that was a really profound sort of revelation that I had, that has now, not to say I'm completely, over it and cured, but I have the tools to like really make amends for this and really get back to being that kid. And there was experiences that I had throughout the week that definitely allowed me to tap back into being that child. And I was really proud of myself for really being able to get there and not kind of have this fear or this stigma or this concern with myself, in the midst of just having fun and performing for others. So that's just an anecdote I wanted to include, because it was something really special and really beautiful, for me. And I hope it encourages some of you guys to kind of start thinking about maybe where you got some of these patterns that you have that show up throughout the course of your life, and start tracing them back to maybe your parents and how you reacted to them. And last thing I'll say on this is, when it comes to the Hoffman process, like it's not like they flip a light switch and next thing you know, you're like cured from any negative thoughts you've ever had in your entire life and they never come up again. That's not how it works. They just give you the tools to deal with these things as they come up throughout your life. And the hope is that if you're actively recognizing them, you're aware of them, actively putting tools in place to deal with them in a healthy manner, eventually you can kind of create these new neural pathways that allow you to no longer kind of go through these motions. And there are going to be certain patterns that are so deep rooted, they may stick with you forever, but they won't be as strong, right? They won't have such a strong hold onto your life. And, even just being a few days out, of course, it's still fresh, but I'm aware of my patterns coming up and them not having as much of a stranglehold onto my personality or onto how I see things. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's made me so inspired to continue doing the work, continue loving myself and listening to myself, and at the end of the day, being my authentic self. Now, with that said, I want to hear y'all's experience when it comes to living authentically or not living authentically. And we'll do that in our Ask a Gringo segment. Before that, though, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Ask a Gringo.
I have a question.
All right, so for this week's Ask a Gringo segment, and at DJ Dramos, if you want to be a part of the conversation, I ask these on Instagram for each and every episode. So twice a week, you can be a part of the conversation. So for this one, I simply asked my followers, are you living life as your authentic self? Why or why not? So let's check out a few other responses that we got. Let's see. Real simple and easy on this one from at Miss_B13. She says, no, because I want to stay employed. Laughing emoji, which I get it, but I think you're missing the point of what it really means to live authentically. I mean, obviously doing things that you love and that you're passionate about are all incredibly important. And I hope that you get to be in a place where you can make that move and find the things that you're passionate about. But it's also, how do you show up for the people around you each and every day? How do you show up for yourself each and every day? Are you waking up in the morning confident about yourself, loving yourself? Are you telling yourself that you love yourself? Are you being able to have healthy relationships with those around you and express love and vulnerability and compassion? Are you able to be compassionate for the people that you don't know that you encounter with every day, right? All of those are incredibly important aspects of us and are incredibly important parts of showing up as our authentic self at the end of the day, right? Like, to me, when I think about my authentic self, it's me showing up as the best version of me in each and every way. And it's also showing up, to life, being led by love and curiosity. That's kind of how I define it in the vow that I took when I left the Hoffman Process. So just something to think about. Let's see. At Bren J Life Coaching, the homie says yes and no. It's an ongoing journey. No, because I still hold back for the fear that I may be wrong or unintentionally hurting someone with my ignorance or lack of knowledge in something. But I guess authentic me is just that way. I just still hold back. I don't know why. I don't want you to think that your authentic self is you holding back or kind of like being paralyzed by this fear of like hurting someone. I mean, at the end of the day, if you unintentionally hurt someone, as long as you take responsibility for it, what more can you do, right? Like, you can't live life in fear that you're going to hurt someone. Obviously, you're hoping to do things led by compassion, led by love, and all of that. But even while still trying to live life by kind of that straight and narrow, you may unintentionally hurt somebody. And as long as you take ownership for it, there's nothing else. Like, you could keep it moving. You know what I mean? I don't think you should allow those things to hold you back. And the reality is, like, you don't need to be an expert in something to necessarily talk about it, right? Like, you can talk about anything and talk about it from your own experience. How are you interpreting it? And that's being authentic. You are literally presenting, what you've seen, what you read, and you're presenting it with your own interpretation. I think that at the root of what you're talking about, and I apologize if I'm getting unsolicited advice, but I think you're just overthinking it and you're not having the confidence in yourself to go for it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what you have to, I guess, learn in this journey, and something, I'm still learning and have done a lot of work on. But at the end of the day is like, listen, people are going to talk. You're going to have people who hate. You're going to have people who support. It just comes with the territory of like making decisions, right? Like, how many times you make a decision in your family, like, this is what we're having for dinner tonight, and somebody's complaining like, damn, I didn't want that. I wanted pizza tonight. And it's like, well, listen, somebody had to make a decision. I made it. Like, that's a part of being a leader. That's a part of taking ownership of things. There's always going to be some sort of critique, always some sort of feedback with it. And you just have to understand that you use the best tools that you had for yourself at the moment to make the best decision possible, right? And you can't hold back. You have so much to share with the world. We all have so much we need to, share with the world. And the world, it would be such a better place if we all experience the ability to share with one another. So that's what I kind of challenge you to do. Don't overthink it. Don't hold back. Just like allow yourself to do it. And there's going to be mistakes made along the way. There are things that I may have misspoken on in this podcast, or people who have messaged me or commented and telling me things that they didn't like the way that I said something, or they might have been offended by something. And listen, I do my best to look at it with compassion and also forgiveness for myself, because at the end of the day, I'm an imperfect human being doing the best he can with the tools that he has at this moment. And just because I don't have all the tools right now doesn't mean I'm going to allow that to stop me from doing the things that I want to do and the things that make me happy. So I would hope that you can, find a way to do the same for yourself, because it really is a beautiful thing. Let's see. At akikodiedra.gw said, yes, the person you have to answer to first is yourself. Your own brain is the one that will always haunt you. Yeah, I agree. And I would add to your brain, your body, and all that as well, like your whole full self, all the different aspects of yourself. You have to make sure you're taking care of. But that's completely right. I think I believe this was a scenario that was said to me during the Hoffman process, but it's like there's a reason why they tell you when you're on a plane, if something were to happen, to put your own face mask on first, then help out the person next to you, even if it is like a child or whatever, right? Because you're of no service to anyone else if you yourself are, passing out in that scenario, or just you yourself have like your life is a complete mess. Like, how could you truly be of service to anybody else? So you have to take care of number one first. And that allows you to have the power to then help others who are in need. And I love how you said you have to answer to yourself first. You have to answer to yourself first, 100%. You have to, share with yourself that same love and compassion that you would have for others. You have to first be able to bestow it upon yourself to truly, live a happy, fulfilled life as your authentic self. And the last one I'll read here is at cfiles_15. And she says, no, I feel that in order to be heard, successful, and accepted, I have been required to assimilate. This one hurts my heart so fucking bad, right? Because I was where you were just a couple years ago, right? Like, I didn't feel like I could live as my authentic self. I didn't feel like there was a place for me as a, New Yorican, who was just as interested in like hip hop as he was in Latin culture, as well as metal and pop music and everything else in between, and also wanting to fight for politics and social justice issues and all of those different things, right? I didn't know where the fuck that existed. Like, the spaces I was hanging out in were trying to tell me you have to pick one thing. You have to go somewhere else to do that, right? You need to stop doing that. You need to change your voice a little bit and speak more this way, more that way. And the reality is that, like, that's just bullshit. That's just society. That's just people's interpretations of what is possible, right? Like, all of these people are just pushing on you their own perception of what is possible, what is acceptable. And the reality is, as we've seen through various advances in various fields in life, like, things change, right? Like, people were so used to doing things one way, and now, like, new technology develops and everybody has to adapt. But those old school people always assumed it was going to be done that way, right? And those people, who allow themselves to kind of just fall in line, like, they rarely ever do anything that ever actually, like, truly affects people, right? Because they're just kind of like middle ground, going through the motions, not doing anything to upset the herd. Like, the ones who truly make an impact in this world are the ones who push against whatever is told to them is the norm, right? Like, how, whatever they're being told is like the right way to do something. Like, no, fuck that. There is no right way in this life to do things. Like, every time somebody says something can only be done one way, you have somebody who figures out how to do another way, and they end up becoming incredibly successful because they decided to push against the grain and approach things from a different perspective. So don't allow yourself to think that you have to assimilate. And I know you're talking about here, obviously, something that many Latinos go through, our generations here. And especially when you're talking about how we were raised, like, not to make too much noise, right? Not to bring too much attention to ourselves. And we've been, like, pushed down our throats, kind of this, like, lack of confidence in being able to fully show up as ourselves. Like, the reality is, you don't have to assimilate into white culture to become successful, for people to respect you and any of the above, right? Like, you can show up as yourself. Obviously, there are certain places where, you have to show up in certain ways of respect or dress codes, whatever the case may be, right? But you can still bring your authentic self into those spaces. And in fact, those spaces will be better off for you bringing your authentic self into those places, right? Like for me, I say this all the fucking time. I began to truly find success in my career when I stopped caring about what others were telling me I should be doing and just decided to do what felt right to me. And that's that. That's end of story, right? Like what felt right to me was advocating for people. What felt right to me was being able to show up exactly how I wanted to show up, and to be able to create things that actually mean something, right? As opposed to just trying to take whatever route I can to find a quick success. So, man, I think that I understand 110% your mindset of feeling like you need to assimilate and for people to take you seriously in this life. But I would challenge you to push against that and find spaces at the end of the day that celebrate you as opposed to try and make you conform to whatever their notion of prim and proper is at the end of the day, essentially. And with that said, thank y'all so much for the answers to this question at DJ Dramos. Again, if you want to be a part of the conversation, we do it for each and every episode. So every Tuesday and Thursday, y'all will be able to get your voice heard. Just check in on my Instagram throughout the week. I'll be posting those questions on there and then reading them on the show. Now, with that said, let's tie everything we've talked about today into a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for conclusion stew.
All right, so I think for me, when I really think back on this entire process, I just went through my goals, my intentions for wanting to go on such an intensive journey and what authenticity really means. I think that it's living a life that is truly led by love and truly led by compassion. And that is that goes both ways, right? Love for yourself, love for others, compassion for yourself, and compassion for others. And I think that that's kind of the general, to me, the recipe for authenticity, because when you love yourself, when you have compassion for yourself, you will not accept anything that is less than, worthy of you, right? And that could be relationships, that could be your career, that could be your interactions with friends, whatever the case may be. Like when you have genuine love for yourself, you will stand up for what you deserve and what you believe in, and you'll set those boundaries so that people can't take advantage of you or put you in situations that you don't feel comfortable with, And when you live your life led by compassion, you allow yourself not to have so many of those self-deprecating thoughts, right? Like when you understand that mistakes are going to happen, I'm going to have slip-ups, I'm going to do things that I regret, but it's okay. It's all a part of my experience. I'm showing compassion for myself being a human being. You'll find yourself a lot happier, a lot more fulfilled, right? You're not having to constantly have these constant thoughts in your head of not being good enough, of fighting for your confidence, right? You're showing yourself a lot of grace, and that is imperative to living authentically. And then also being able to do the same for other people, right? Like trying to understand other stories, trying to understand where they're coming from, right? Even if they rub you the wrong way, understanding that, all of this is the sort of amalgamation of like years and years of life happening to them, essentially, right? Like their parents passing on certain traits to them, certain patterns to them, and now they're acting it out as an adult, and you develop empathy that way. When you recognize that they're fighting their own shit just like you, you realize that, this is somebody that, while I may not agree with what they're doing or what they're saying, they still deserve my love because they are fighting something, right? They still have some sort of internal struggle, just like all of us do. And they're, trying to deal with it in the best way that they know how at that time. And the last thing I'll mention, so my vow that I did with the Hoffman Process, like when you vow how you want to live your life. So mine was, I vow to live as my authentic self, led by love and curiosity. And I want to throw curiosity in there because I think that's incredibly important. Because I think, so many of us, when we begin to get older, we forget that life is all about adventure and fun, right? Like that doesn't just have to end when we become adults. That was, that's kid stuff. Like, no, like that same curiosity that we had as children for things that we're interested in, places that we want to see, people we want to meet. Like we should allow ourselves to explore that in life. Like I'm recognizing and realizing like fun and time to explore and all of that is just as big of a priority for me right now as my career is, right? Spending time with the ones that I love and that make me feel good, that is just as big of a priority as my career is, because all of that helps create like this healthy ecosystem within my body. It allows me to feed myself in multiple ways, right? Like that fun allows me to be in a great headspace that will in turn benefit my career. Loving myself, forgiving myself will put me in a great headspace that will in turn allow me to really, thrive in my career. Loving my body and being mindful of the way that I, treat my body by not exercising or by eating terrible things. Like if I'm mindful of all that stuff, my body will be able to show up for me that much better in my career and in my fun and all of the above, right? So it's just understanding that each thing feeds the other, and you have to allow yourself time for all of the things. Career and money obviously are incredibly important when it comes to surviving, but so are love and joy and fun and curiosity at the end of the day. So that's my vow. I would actually love to hear what your vow is. If this touched you in some sort of way, I would challenge you to make a vow for how you want to live your life. And it could be a simple sentence like mine. I vow to live as my authentic self, led by love and curiosity. And I'd love to hear what your vow is for yourself. So DM me at DJ Dramos, or hit me up on Twitter. It's the same handle. And let me know what your vow is for yourself, how you want to show up for yourself, moving forward in your life. And with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. I appreciate y'all so much. It feels so good to be back. I hope that my insights that I've had over the last week or so were helpful for you and maybe inspiring you to want to do something like this, or at least just kind of dig a little bit deeper as to where some of your thoughts and feelings and patterns come from. At DJ Dramos again on social media. Hit me up. Let me know if you have an idea for an episode. I always love seeing those. I've taken some of you up on those ideas that you sent me. So yeah, always stay connected. I try and answer back everything. And I will catch y'all on Thursday for our trending episode. Till then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.